I think existence by itself is neutral. The reason why there are so few Stoics around, have you thought about this? Stoicism has been discovered a long time ago. Almost nobody is a Stoic. How is that?
Well, I know a few people who are Stoics, actually.
Yeah, but the majority is not.
Well,
it seems to be so obvious. Only worry about the things that you can actually change to the degree that the worry helps you changing them.
Yeah,
So why is nobody a Stoic? Almost nobody. I suspect that Stoicism is maladaptive from an evolutionary perspective. Most cats I have known are Stoics, which means if you leave them alone, they're fine. Like their baseline state is okay. They're okay with themselves and their place in the universe, and they just stay at that place. And only when you disturb that, because they need to use the bathroom or because they are hungry or they want to play or whatever, this equilibrium gets disturbed and they do exactly what's necessary to get back to the equilibrium state, and then they're fine again. And a human being is slightly different. A healthy human being is set up in such a way that when they wake up in the morning, they're not completely fine. And then they need to be busy during the day, but in the evening, they're fine. Right? In the evening, it's done enough to make peace with existence again, and then they can have a beer and meet with their friends, and everything is good. And then there are some individuals which have so much discontent within themselves, right? The human is the animal that is discontent, that they cannot take care of this in a single day, right? Even after several weeks of sustained work, they are still in a state where it's not good enough. And only when they have this amazing thing where they get their Nobel Prize, they're fine for like half a day.
Yeah.
And the way this is the way we are set up to different degrees. And from an evolutionary perspective, you can totally see why that would be useful for a group species. For an species that is not so much a group species, like cats are not really meant for groups. They're very much singletons. For them, it's rational to be a Stoic. But if you're a group animal, it makes sense that the well-being of the individual is sacrificed for the well-being of the group. So each individual is overextending themselves to make the group more successful and produce a surplus of resources for the group as a result.
So yeah, there will be some people who would be like that and some people who would be like otherwise. And this way, on the whole, they're evolutionarily most adaptive. But some would be more adaptive to one kind of situation and others would be more adaptive to other kinds of situation.
I'm not sure if this is true. So for instance, we find that larger habitats don't necessarily have more species in them. And that's because there's a fiercer competition, which means that there's less slack in the evolution. So for instance, New Zealand had a lot of species before there was immigration of other species, and they obliterated most of the stuff that existed. Right. Mostly because the stuff that came in was the result of a much fiercer competition that existed in small New Zealand.
Sure, yeah.
And in a way, the same thing happens now. We are the result of evolution. We are, as Minsky said, evolution's way to put the airplanes into the sky and make these clouds that the airplanes planes make. And we reduce the number of species dramatically. We are like probably eventually going to look like a meteor that is going to obliterate a large part of the species on this planet.